Since its launch in 2009, the Audi Q5 has done a good job of keeping up with the Joneses. The Joneses, in this case, being the sales-leading BMW X3, behind which this car sits with about 40% market share. But it's now reached that point in its life where things need to be refreshed. The midlife revitalization, or facelift, is the motor industry's way of saying, we know it's not new anymore, but we're going to change a few things to make sure people still know it's still around and still feel tempted to spend their money on it rather than newer, shinier things. I do understand the process and why it's done, but I am cynical of it for one simple reason. The manufacturers invariably follow the same recipe. You get new head and tail lights, you get a new front and rear bumper. If you're lucky, you get a new bonnet and maybe some new engines. And all those changes combined generally hardly make any difference. Most of the time. The updates to the Q5 could be described as minimal, comprising the aforementioned head and tail lights, as well as an updated grille and front bumper and a new diffuser at the back, but the difference to the presence of the car makes it seem like they did a lot more. In some respects, it looks more compact, a bit more together. The LED bars replacing the previous individual LEDs make it smoother and more stylish. The Q5 was never a car that caught my attention. Now, I like it a lot. And that theme of being impressive without being over the top carries on inside, although our test car does have a tricky color scheme. Beige interiors. On the upside, they're a little bit different. On the downside, they're not the most practical, especially in an SUV. And our test car, with less than 3,000 Ks on the clock, is already sporting some stains. But it is a cabin that is classier than most, even though the spec level is fairly basic. Base price for this Q5 is 488,000 Rand, but once you've added the niceties of our test car, it shoots right up to 539,000 Rand. What you get standard is aircon, cruise control, and electric windows and mirrors. What you pay extra for is everything else, from the 22,000 Rand sat-nav system to the 1,200 Rand 3-spoke steering wheel. The color display in the instrument panel, 1,300 Rand. The iPod connection, 2,600 Rand. I blame the world economy. You get nothing without asking for it and paying for it anymore. It is a versatile thing though. The rear seats can be adjusted forward and back, and the boot is a decent size. Cleverly, the spare wheel compartment has been carpeted, so it adds a little extra storage space for smaller objects if you need it. You may have noticed that the spare wheel in the boot is not a full-sized one, and that's your first clue that this is a car designed primarily for tar. There are other things, like the optional drive select system that has a dynamic mode. But there are things that tell you it can handle a bit of dirt, the raised ride height being the obvious one. It's also got quattro all-wheel drive and optional hill descent control. Chances are, though, that the salt pans and other outdoor destinations won't be seeing a Q5 anytime soon, which really isn't the car's fault. It's just that no one is going to spend 500,000 Rand on their Q5 so they can take the kids to school during the week, then drop it into Africa on the weekend. I can't say that the 2-litre diesel motor is the right choice for either job, though. Remember how I said the Q5 now has a smooth exterior look? Well, the power delivery is a slightly different story. It's got a respectable 130 kilowatts and 380 newton meters, but the experience is a little jarring. There's very noticeable turbo lag on pull-off, and the 7-speed S-tronic gearbox often struggles to get the best out of the engine. On the open road, calling up a little bit of power often requires a downshift, and even though it uses a dual clutch system, that downshift is not the most refined event in motoring. Paddles on the steering wheel do make things a little more bearable because you learn to anticipate what the gearbox will need to do, and shifting gears yourself becomes the more bearable option. So, while the engine and gearbox are a little bit difficult, the ride setup is a lot better behaved. The Q5 is very car-like, the suspension is comfortable, the steering is accurate, and despite the fact that it doesn't come standard with park distance control, it's easy to maneuver around parking lots and tight spaces. This particular Q5 then is a bit of a conundrum, offering a comfortable drive but with an odd power delivery. It's got good spec but at a price. It's got an interior that's versatile but not altogether practical. There's no doubt that the small changes that Audi have made to the exterior of the Q5 have made a big difference. But the 2-litre TDI with S-tronic is certainly not the one to go for. And if you have to have diesel, the bad news is your only other option is a 3-litre for about 100,000 Rand more. But if you ditch the diesel and the S-tronic, what you can then get is the 132 kilowatt petrol and a manual gearbox, and 20 grand in change. The 2-litre turbo in the updated Q5 manages decent figures, but the power delivery is jarring. Even the S-tronic gearbox doesn't help matters. All the elements you'd expect have been updated, making a big difference to the car's presence. The interior is versatile, although the colour scheme shows wear too easily.